Welcome to episode 17 of the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can obviously read me in the sports section of the Chicago Sun-Times. If I appear anywhere else, it's probably an issue. Or you can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at @JCowleyHoops. Follow at your own discretion. It's not always a fun follow. So my experience with the three teams in town that I've covered as a beat writer, the White Sox, obviously, the Bears, and now the Bulls for the last 13 years or so. Let's just say I haven't always gotten along with the public relation heads of the departments. The White Sox obviously was very contentious with Scott Reifert. The Bears, it wasn't awful, but you always felt like you were the enemy. The one thing I'll say about, since covering the Bulls, and the one thing I give them credit for, whether it was Tim Hallam, who has since retired, they make you feel like you are actually not an equal, but you're not the enemy. And to get that in this profession is it's important. So this person I'm bringing on obviously has not only continued what Tim presented to me, or the feeling Tim gave to me, but has even enhanced that even more. And a lot of people say, Joe, we know you're a man of the people. And I say, I am. It is Women's History Month, so I think we should acknowledge that. So let's bring in Director of Basketball Communications for the Chicago Bulls, Beth Esler.
What an intro.
Is that not a great intro?
That was some of the nicest things you've ever said.
Well, it's true. I mean, so this is how bad it got with the White Sox. And I'm not saying all the members of the White Sox, Bob Bechtel, Pat O'Connell, Ray Garcia, all great guys. It was the head of the department, Scott Reifert, who I think anyone that is in the inside of this business knows he and I didn't get along well, especially when I called him a cabana boy in a column and said he worked Jerry's pool and cleaned Jerry's pool. That didn't go over too well. I probably didn't help the relationship with that. But, they used to bring us out, back in the day before everything was so internet driven, they used to print out our articles and make a big clip book.
Yeah.
And it would start in spring training. He'd bring us the book of clips with red circles and notes. Wrong, opinion. And he'd be like, I took journalism in college and you're not supposed to have opinion. This is opinion, wrong. And so right then it never went well after that. What is your philosophy in dealing with the media? Because on the surface, some consider us the enemy, but at the same time, we are also kind of the checks and balances of the fan base. So how do you view us? How do the Bulls view us? And why do you think there's been at least as long as I've been there, it seems like it's been a really good, strong relationship between PR, media relations, and media?
Yeah. We all are a collective in this industry, and we are all people with a job to do. And I think understanding that you guys have a story to tell, we have a job to help you do that, which is not only serving as this bridge up to the players or leadership or the head coach, but it really comes down to understanding the bigger picture and what serves the long-term interests for all of those people within that party. It's the team, the player, and you guys, the media. And so while also protecting the integrity of the organization that I work for, but, my role acts as a bridge between all of those groups, and every situation requires me and my team to weigh the context, the relationships involved, and the potential impact there. Just making sure that there's compassion, there's understanding, and we're leading with a kindness that we've all got a job to do.
How do you obviously even with the Bulls, I've had some issues with the former front office. I wouldn't say I've had issues with the new front office like I did the old front office. And this was before your time, but there were some phone calls. There were some sit downs that were done. It seems like you guys have to walk a fine line where you can't. We are not the priority. The organization's the priority. I understand that. But at the same time, you don't, it's in my estimation, you wouldn't want to make an enemy out of it where it becomes kind of just a pissing contest of, okay, we're going to continue to play the cards and play the hand this way, and we don't care what that media member feels or whatever like that. How do you walk that kind of fine line where you kind of got to keep the peace between two sides that might not want to keep the peace?
Yeah, it's definitely like hard to balance. There's a ton of different personalities within our beat that is a lot to manage and service. And I think part of it's like educating all parties again to the roles and intentions from each party. And in each situation, I often, like, I first ask myself, like, what's the truth of the situation? And like, what are the facts going on? Right. Like, what
is that carry for you? Does that carry the number one priority, or protecting the badge is the number one priority? And sometimes if the truth hurts the badge, how do you weigh that?
It's like, my priority is protecting the people and also protecting what's the story that we're telling as an organization, right? Like, it's a constant battle between the two. At the end of the day, my job is to protect the brand, the reputation, and the organization, right? But, there is a balancing act of leading with like integrity, having clear communication amongst the group, right. and really like Beth showing up as the same person every day. And you can usually find a right way, like a way to do right by everybody involved.
So you get out of Illinois State University, and was your mindset, did you work in the SID department or do any of that in college?
Yeah, my senior year, I was in SID primarily over women's tennis. But you also got to assist with like men's and women's basketball, volleyball, soccer, all that. And then when I graduated in May of 2010, the market crashed and I was like, holy hell, like, how am I going to find a job? Like, I really wanted to go into sports or a PR agency, but I ended up going into nonprofit PR, and I was doing media relations for United Way for like 2 years. And then our director of marketing came over to the Bulls, and she kind of poached me and brought me over.
Okay. So you started off with, I think you were like in corporate communications, which basically is, what are you like dealing more with the front office and corporate?
Yeah, it's like we have like brand business, and then we have basketball communications. And so we call it like off the court PR and on the court PR. So my first season and a half, like the 13-14 season into the 14-15 season, I was doing primarily corporate off the court PR.
And when you first came over to the Bulls, and because to me, the NBA is the most forward in this thinking of diversity as far as women in sports. I think the NBA overall is just a more diverse sport. I covered baseball for 12 years, and obviously that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think baseball is probably the furthest behind. It's gotten better. But I think the NBA has always kind of been front and center. When you first come over to the Bulls, and obviously you wanted to work for a pro team, I'm guessing, did it feel different or new or unique, or was there enough women around in the business where you didn't feel like, oh, could be uncomfortable, or this feels like a man's world, or this feels like out of, you know what I mean? Because there just weren't a lot, especially in baseball back in the day with PR. Cubs is the only one I could think of.
We've always, in my 12 seasons here, there's always been a very good mix of men and women diversity. Like, the Bulls put that on like a real high premium around here. But yeah, I read Malika Andrews posted something the other day about like Women's History Month, that it's, about it, the question, like, how does it feel to work in a male dominated industry? And there was like a reframing to it of like, it's a male populated industry and women still dominate. And there have been so many women who I've worked with in this space, whether it be at the Bulls or ESPN or other teams or other sports, who really are leading, shaping culture and like setting a real standard of excellence for women all over sports. And, you know, when you focus on the word like dominate, or it's like a man's world, it sort of gives this like perception or implies that women are on like the outside looking in, when for me, I see myself and many of us right in the middle of it, like making things happen and having a respected voice at the table. Like I've always felt respected, heard, acknowledged. I've never really felt on the outside because of my gender in any way.
Right. Were you concerned about that when you first came to the Bulls because they're just an unknown?
No, you know, and maybe I'm like the exception to this here. Like I grew up with two older brothers, so I kind of already had like a thick skin and can roll with the guys. And, you know, I don't take things too personally. It takes a lot to kind of like insult and feel insulted or hurt. But I didn't feel like intimidated by it being, you know, commonly like a male populated industry. I was more like, I can't wait to add my energy to this. Like this
Right.
It's great.
Again, I'm asking this as just dopey guy caveman who grew up in the 80s. But are there things that are said or that you hear that you have to kind of, I don't feel that comfortable. Like the one thing, you know, with Julia, I've had Julia on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And the one thing I told Julia is I was like, we have a big age difference, Julia. And I may say something that is what I grew up with because I'm just dopey guy. If I say something, let me know. And she was super cool about, I will absolutely 100% let you know. Are there certain things where you feel like you have to, didn't love that, but I have to kind of squish that down? Or because you have two brothers and you were kind of raised in the hills of whatever pictures we see of you and you're off the court, that it just doesn't bother you. You're just wired like that, where it doesn't, stuff like that doesn't.
Yeah, you know, it's both. Like I would say that I've carried myself in a way throughout my career where the people that I'm around know better than to kind of like say anything that could be taken as insulting. But if there is, like I've been like, cut the shit out. Like let's not go there.
Right.
You know, but like so rare, really.
You obviously your name became public a couple of years ago with the Zach LaVine thing. And what people I don't think understand is how good of friends you and Zach were. It didn't look like that from the video. Was that uncomfortable for you because we all had to write about it because I think it made SportsCenter because the way Zach kind of pulled away, it was a little over exaggerated. It wasn't like your arm was on him and he ripped your arm, but at the same time, it wasn't great. It wasn't a great look because A, they won.
Right.
And B, you were asking him simply to do his job, which to me, an athlete should know that part of his job is talking to the media. And C, the things that we knew that probably people in the public didn't know is you really get along with Zach and his wife and are good friends with them. And so that was just a whoa moment.
Yeah, I would say like the most uncomfortable part of it was being the person at the center point of a situation that was gaining like media traction. And like, I'm the one who stays behind the camera, behind the microphone and strategizes for people. Right. So I was like, I do not like this. We need to shut this down. Like, I know I pretty much came straight to like you, Casey, and some other beat writers to really clarify what was going on there. Right. And unfortunately, in a situation like that, it's so visual. It's easy to like assume the worst and rumors and whatever. And, you know, Zach and I have very much like a brother-sister relationship. And after that, it was kind of like, this isn't great. You know, one, we needed to remedy the situation of why we didn't want to do the walk-off interview. And then also like, remember optics, like you're in front of 20,000 people. You got a camera right there. Let's like think about the environment there too.
So when players come there, or every year, I know baseball did it, and I believe you guys do it. You guys do meet with the players and say, ideally, this is how you should deal with the media. They have to take, like, is it as a class they take, or is it just training, or just you guys just talk to them?
Yeah,
and say,
it's league mandated that every team hold a media training session at some point. If there's a deadline for it, but I don't know what it is. We always do ours on media day. So it's like we have our media, they come in, they do their physicals. We go through a media training, kind of like introduce each of the beat writers to them. You're always a fun one to discuss.
So you guys actually go over the personnel of the media?
We'll give like the high level, like names and outlets of who they can see on the beat. But yeah, we take them through like an extensive media training. One, just so that they know what to expect, and two, like what their job is and responsibilities are to carry through per the CBA. Let's say, like talking at practices and shoot arounds, talking pre and post game, miking a player up for a game. Like there's things that they need to know. It's not just like I'm coming to ask because I want to. It's to help them fulfill their obligations as well.
Do you put up pictures of the media people like Animal House where they all start booing certain people? This is Joe Cowley, and stuff gets thrown.
Yeah.
No, okay. So the White Sox 1 year, I think 1 or 2 years, they actually brought in media members to talk to the players as far as what kind of stuff they're – not me. They didn't allow me to do that, but they brought in some other beat writers that were a little more civil and had them talk to the players about, these are the kind of things we need from you. These are the things we kind of ask, which I thought was a different approach. Who does it for you guys? Do you have a media person that does it?
Yeah, it's myself and Patrick take them through it.
Okay. Yeah. What do you guys say about me? Is it a secret?
I don't know, Joe. I think you have a pretty safe assumption about what gets said.
Interesting. So one of the things I've talked to you about, the Reinsdorfs are obviously the face of the ownership. It's a group, but they're the face of the ownership. Then you have the front office with Arturis, Mark Eversley, general manager, Arturis, VP of basketball, executive VP basketball operations. Then you have the coach, Billy Donovan. Then you have the players. It's funny, when you talk to the organization, you talk to the coaching staff, they prop the players as everything. We have to be a player-friendly organization. The players have to be everything. And I get that, because you want to be an attractive destination spot. You don't want, because players talk, especially in the NBA. And if there's one or two bad reviews, it gets out.
Yeah.
What's the priority list, or what's the priority of what you most have to, if coach is telling you this should be the message, or front office is telling you this is the message, or ownership is telling you this is the message, is it as simple as ownership, front office, coach, player? Or, how do you juggle? If one guy is really hell-bent on, no, this is the message, what's the priority?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's ownership. They're the ones who own and operate the team. But I would say here, over the years, and similar to how we've built relationships with you guys on the beat, is like, it's very collaborative. Like when we get in the room together and we're talking about trade deadline messaging, or what's transpiring on the trade deadline or end of season, like everybody has a voice at the table. Like no one is like driving it or, dictating anything. Like it's very out in the open. And
you guys feel heard.
Oh,
you guys as a team, the PR team, you guys feel heard in that.
Oh yeah. And like, we're even asked like, how will that play? How honest should we be? And, we've really worked hard. You kind of talked about this as you were starting the show, like bringing you guys in and validating the job that you have. And there's a level of transparency to that too. Like I really pride myself in general on transparency and authenticity in those situations. But I know that leadership and Billy Donovan certainly do as well.
So our profession has vastly changed, I'd say probably the last 10 years. where it was a feather in your cap. When I did the White Sox, it was a feather, and it wasn't so internet centric, Twitter, all that stuff. I mean, that was around, but it was in the, it was not even a walking baby. It was still in the cradle. So we didn't have to worry about a Woj or a Shams and everything getting broken. Then I've come to the NBA beat, and it's like, as a beat writer, every so often you'll get something just for being around the team. But as far as like the nuts and bolts of stuff, the business has completely changed, where they are just going to get stuff before the organization wants them to, before the other media members want them to, because they have the whole agencies in their pocket. So they're dealing with the first voice that's going to be sometimes even before the player. Sometimes the agent talks to somebody before the player. How difficult is that, where teams used to be able to keep secrets and hide things, and especially in the NBA, you can't even hide the freaking draft choice at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. Like there's times where I'll read stuff like seconds after something's happened, and then I either have to follow up with management and leadership to be like, hey, saw this, you'll loop me in when it's time, or I get hit about it in advance that it's coming. And I get the job that the national guys have. My preference is always going to be to give favor to the locals, because they're working the hardest for me and for us and the team, and covering the team, and all the time and energy that you guys put into things, and really have the relationships with, more often than not, the players that are involved in whatever it is that's being leaked, right? So it's really tough to balance, and I get the advantage of it from up top. My preference is always to break that kind of stuff locally first, so that it's told our way through our avenues.
What's for you, what's been the biggest change in front offices, from the old front office to this front office?
The biggest change between the two front offices,
I mean, they both seem to have valued the PR team and the job that they're doing, at least from what I saw. It seems like both of them understand the importance of you guys and being kind of a buffer in between and making sure, everybody's playing nice.
Yeah, I would say like the biggest change, and it's really pointed at like how the industry has evolved so much. Like you were saying, it's no longer just like newspapers. You've got like bloggers and online outlets, and the media market isn't what it was 6 years ago when those guys were still here. It's different now. And I would say that now more than ever, there's a real importance for our roles in telling the story and managing the narrative around the team. And I think, Arturas, Mark, and Billy are genuinely so connected and have such a high care factor to make sure that the story is accurate and genuine, that it makes our jobs a lot easier.
Right. Do Bulls have a content team? Every NBA team has a content team. Do you guys have any input in that, or no?
Yeah, we collaborate daily with those guys, like whether it's on our all access episodes that you see and fans see. We're sort of this bridge from the content team who falls on the business side, sort of like getting access to the players for those types of things. Or if they have like a storyline, a story that they're wanting to tell. Like as we're getting ready for this West Coast trip coming up, they sent us a couple of ideas, and we go back and forth and brainstorm or reshape it or enhance it to like make it the best that it can be. And then we'll kind of work and collaborate with the players on the logistics and the details of that stuff. But we're super, super like in it together.
So I will say this, I'd say probably 10, 15 years ago, when teams started putting out their old content, I had some serious issues with those people because to me, they were spinning a narrative that was not true.
Sure.
What I think has happened, and again, that was my opinion. What I think has happened is whether it's the media or maybe it's just me maturing, I don't know, but it seems like we don't really operate in the same boats.
No, they're similar.
They may try to get our sound, but they're not gonna use the same quotes if it's a detrimental quote to the organization. They're gonna pick and choose and show the unicorns and rainbows and sunshine of the organization at the end of the day.
Yes, but I think we also do keep it authentic to things that are said, whether it can be like a little dicey or not the most positive. But, we do, of course you always want the positivity and the most, the most positive quotes or storyline out there, right? But I think that we strike a right balance of like the authenticity of things too. It's not like fabricated or manufactured in any way.
Do you guys have to follow all of us on Twitter?
Have to? No.
Have to or choose to?
I choose to.
Who's got the most fun Twitter? It's got 2 thumbs.
Fun is
that not the right word?
I would say you and Julia are up there. You're a little crazy out there, but Julia's really funny. Her humor gets me sometimes.
Yeah, I told her she's been a great addition to the beat. I'm glad.
Yeah,
at first she was very quiet and she's gotten her voice. How important is it, do you think, to you can't manage us technically,
right?
But how important is it that you guys feel like you have to have at least a pulse of our mood toward the team or our direction of what we feel towards the team? Or is that just separate? And when a shot is fired, then you have to go ahead and deal with it. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like, you're not going to tell us what to write, but is it important for you to know kind of the way we're feeling about something, especially in a newspaper where I can have an opinion, which is not always what other newspapers allow? That's different. And trust me, that was the initial problem I had with the White Sox. They didn't understand that the Sun-Times empowered their beat writers to write columns and have strong opinions, and they thought that was unethical. You guys obviously don't, but at the same time, I could write a feature story one day and the next day come back with a column, killing Gar Forman.
Well, I'm pretty sure you did that today.
I did not do that today. I wrote a very positive piece about Trey Jones. You haven't seen it, obviously.
I have not.
Yesterday, I wrote something about Arturas.
Yeah. I would say like there's opinion pieces and then there's like features that you guys are writing, right? And then also game coverage. And, at the end of the day, I know it's in your wheelhouse. It's not for me to manage what it is that you end up writing in an opinionated piece. Like that's on you. But What I will say is like, if you're writing something on, 3-point shooting or defensive systems, like I would want to help enhance that and get you connected with an assistant coach or an analytics director or, or a player development coach who adds more color and a voice to the feature that you're writing. It's not so much to control as much as like to collaborate with you and service you the best way that we can, because that's a part of our job.
Are you ready for the interrogation room?
I didn't want to do this.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't want to go to Cowley Island.
No, Cowley Island comes later. You're not invited to Cowley Island. You won't want to be on when it's Cowley Island. That's my rant. TV show that right now is a guilty pleasure for you.
Oh my God, The Wire.
The Wire. Did you just start The Wire?
For like the 3rd or 4th time.
Oh, okay.
Do you want like a current show?
Yeah, current show.
I just started watching Say Nothing.
What is Say Nothing?
It's about two sisters who are in the IRA.
Oh, I won't like that. Reality show you would most likely appear on. A reality TV show you would most likely appear on.
I don't know. I don't watch reality TV, but is Fear Factor reality TV?
Yeah, like 20 years ago when Joe Rogan was hosting it, you would want to do
Joe
that.
Rogan was hosting it. My dad and I always joked that we would win Fear Factor father-daughter.
Okay. Are you better at hunting or fishing?
Fishing.
You have hunted.
Yes.
What's the biggest thing you killed?
A rabbit.
Oh, I'd say something cool like a bear or something dangerous.
No, I haven't killed a bear.
I know you like to vacation. Place the next on your destination list that you like to go to.
Ooh. I was just thinking about my off-season trip. My mom and I have talked about going to Greece. Or I might do like a Jamaica, Bahamas.
Okay. Nicest Bulls player you've ever been around?
That's like,
and we might not even have known it, because right now I will say this: if people don't know, this locker room and this coaching staff are probably the nicest collection of people I've ever had to cover, as far as just their willingness to talk, and they're just, because I trust me, I've covered some shitty human beings.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And this current Bulls locker room, maybe that's the problem, is they're such nice guys. Who's the nicest? If you were just like, this guy is just.
That's like trying to pick a favorite kid.
I know there's been a lot of them. Who's been like just a super nice person? Like Trey Jones, I'm blown away with how nice that kid is.
Isn't he just so nice?
It's unbelievable.
They're so kind.
Yes.
God, I mean, there's like
Bobby Poe, Nikola Mirotic.
Vooch is very kind. Kobe.
No, Mirotic.
Oh.
Vooch? You'll stick with Vooch.
Vooch.
Okay. Kobe. Because Kobe really could hate me if he wanted, with the Twitter war I got into with his brother. And he's been like, it was nothing.
Yeah. He cares about
you can't pick one?
No, I really can't. That would be impossible. It's like picking a favorite kid.
Bulls player, I'm not going to say Bulls player you dislike the most, because you won't tell the truth on that. Bulls player that disliked the media the most, or like working with the media the most, that you really had to be like, come on.
Do you already have one that's like top of mind? Because like I don't know that there's anybody who was like, I don't like the media.
I know who liked to be difficult with the media. Not with me, but he did like to be difficult with the media. They had to wait on his. It was on his terms.
Dwayne Wade.
I was going to say Jimmy. It was very, very much in that.
Jimmy. And I don't say that in a negative way.
No, like
Dwayne, their veteran status. Dwayne
was a superstar, and I think Dwayne made it very. And plus, I think he got used to that in Miami.
And Jimmy also liked to just give you shit to be Jimmy,
Yes.
and he was fun about it, but yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the funniest moments, I don't think I don't know if you were, I think you were working in the organization, but I don't think you were on the PR team yet. Were you there for the playoff series against Milwaukee when Derek and Jimmy were still together?
I don't. Was that?
I think you were probably in corporate communications.
Yeah, I think I was.
Okay. Anyway, everybody went to Derek. I did not. Jimmy got brought to the podium, which was in Milwaukee's old arena. It was just like some big room with a bunch of chairs.
Yeah.
I was the only one sitting in there with nobody wanted to talk to him except me. So he's like, he doesn't know that it's live on the NBA feed. He starts dropping F-bombs on me. Like, what the F do you want? What the F are you going to ask me? Not knowing that this was going live on the NBA feed. He got fined for it. I was like, that's your fault. That was your fault, 100%. Media member. Now, I'm phrasing this a certain way. Media member that causes the most headaches.
You.
It is me?
Yeah.
Do you want to think about it a little longer?
You.
Media member that is the most high maintenance, because I'm not high maintenance.
None of you are really high maintenance.
So that's good. But it's not me. I'm not high maintenance.
No.
A headache and high maintenance are two different things.
I would agree.
All right, last question. Joe Cowley is on a bus. It's going over a cliff.
Okay.
On another bus going over a cliff is Dave Hall. You can only rescue one. Who do you rescue? Yeah. Welcome to the interrogation room. Rescue one.
I am MacGyver. And so I would save both buses.
Okay. We'll talk about that at a different time.
Okay.
Beth, I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
I think there are look, I'm trying to get on this podcast. I'm trying to get on media members. I'm trying to get on announcers, players, but there's also people I think that are behind the scenes that people just don't realize their importance. And I think you're pretty important.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. All right. Thank you again.
When do I see you next?
Well, I'm pacing myself right now at this time of the season. I will be in Houston on Saturday.
What is this, March 12th? Yeah, you're in rare mid-season Joe form.
This is a long trip coming up, and I'm just trying to make sure that
you're rested myself. And you're positive and you're coming in ready to hit the ground running.
I'm rested. You're adding words now. You're PRing words now. No, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
All right, awesome. See you soon. All right. Let's go to Cowley Island. Some names that Bulls fans should probably start familiarizing themselves with. Con Knippel, get to know that one. Derek Queen, Liam McNeely. These are all important names for you to realize and to learn, because guess what? Those are probably going to be the area code that you're drafting in. Great win over Miami. Outstanding win over Indiana. Probably have, looking at the schedule, I figure there's probably 7 or 8 more wins out there for Billy's fighting crew. And it all comes back to one thing that I continue to harp on. Arturas Karnisovas does not – I'm starting to think when he talks about roster build-out being more important than having 1 or 2 dominant players, that he actually believes it. I thought he was saying that at the trade deadline just for kind of shits and giggles so the NBA doesn't get angry at him, so the NBA doesn't think he's possibly even tanking. But it's apparent he is not tanking. It is apparent that he believes that these guys learning how to win games, even if it's guys like Kobe White or maybe someone like Trey Jones, who's a free agent after this year, not even in their plans. A guy like Josh Giddey, who is in their plans, but is a restricted free agent. And who knows, if some team comes in with some crazy bid, maybe the Bulls let him walk. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Bulls will give a king's ransom and AK will give whatever he wants to make sure that he won that trade. This thing that he talked about 2 years ago and last year of getting out of the middle and the importance of getting out of mediocrity, he is driving this thing right dead square back into mediocrity. I think they could possibly even win a play-in game to drag this on. Maybe even if God himself comes down and smiles upon the Bulls and says, you are getting out of the play-in and you're going to be the 8th seed, then we get to watch them embarrassed by the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are a total matchup nightmare against them. And then what are you doing then? You're looking at film of Liam McNeely, Derek Queen, Con Knippel. Those are your future Bulls. They're not game changers. They're pieces. Don't even know if they're better than Modest Buchelis. I think he may have a higher ceiling than any of those guys. But those are the guys you're looking at, because you didn't want to look at VJ Edgecombe. You didn't dare want to step in the lottery with Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper, because you have competitive integrity. Nope, you have competitive mediocrity. Let's go to the list. There's a big game tonight. Obviously, this podcast will be already behind on it, but Celtics, OKC, after OKC beat the Celtics earlier this year. Huge game. So you are the man. Boston Celtics, like Ric Flair used to say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. To me, these are the 5 biggest threats to Boston. Number 5, we'll go from 5 to 1. Number 5, the Knicks. I know it's looked ugly in the regular season, but you put Tom in a 7-game series against anyone, especially Boston, a team he loves to beat because that's where he was an assistant coach and helped Doc, well, basically coach that team, and Doc got credit for it, to a championship back in the day. They're at number 5. Number 4, Joker's doing freakish things. Joker's starting to wake up and do his Joker stuff. Joker's number 4. Number 3, never, ever, ever doubt playoff Jimmy. And he's got a few friends with him. Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time. Draymond Green, just a guy who understands winning, especially in April, May, and June. So I have them at number 3. Don't count them out. Number 2, OKC. I think the thing is with OKC, still too young. One of the youngest teams in the league. They went through a little pain last year in losing to Dallas in the playoffs, but you might have to take one more step of pain and then you get it, and then you're ready to go. That seems to be the way that teams kind of climb. And number 1, the team that has fought Boston to a 2-2 record this year out of the Eastern Conference, a team with the number 1 seed right now, a team that makes a great trade at the deadline and in getting DeAndre Hunter, who matches up perfectly with Boston's wings, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I still think Boston's going to come out of the East, but those are the 5 teams that I think will be a threat to their title hopes. And so we'll see how it plays out. So that's it. I want to thank Beth Esler from the Bulls Public Relations Department, obviously her full title Director of Basketball Communications, my main guy, Ryan McGuffey, for all he does. And as usual, I got next.